I'm amazed at the timing here. That song in the bumper was End of the World. It is not the end of the world. We nailed the timing here. Ryan said, hey, can you get me on at halftime? And Todd Bowles is doing his interview, so now it's time for your interview. So welcome to the show, Ryan.
Hey, how's it going, Ryan? Thanks for having me on. And like you said, couldn't have had better timing.
Well, you got to catch us up on the first half a little bit because we've been talking with different folks. We talked with Ty Shalter, your colleague at Pride of Detroit, and we had Emmett Matasovsky on, and we also talked to Eric Kramer and Shane Graham earlier in the show. So been bouncing around. I've been trying to keep an eye on things, but I'm curious kind of what some of your observations were from the first half.
The football game that nobody was expecting. Defense. I mean, the total was clearing over, I think, like 54.5. I mean, 14-3 in the first half. The Bucs finally got the ball over midfield for the first time on that final drive that they had of the first half there. Finally got, into Lions territory and got a field goal to make it 14-3, but the big takeaway has been the Lions defense has been propping up a Lions offense that has just not looked like it's been comfortable since the first drive.
It looks like they got stymied there a couple times. I missed the fourth down. One of the previous guests talked about that. I didn't see the fourth down where they went for it, and then I guess they had a fumble. But that is kind of the way things work with this Lions team. They are hyper aggressive and they go for things. I was hoping they would connect with Tesla there. I saw they went for Tesla in the end zone, and a Tesla touchdown while we're doing a watch along would have been great because I think we're one of the biggest promotional arms of Isaac Tesla, being a local show here, and given the fact that he interviewed before he even went into the draft on our other show on the station here, and it's fun to see him doing well, especially being a local kid. But yeah, who knew that this defensive backfield would hold up so well? I feel like even though I haven't been watching like I normally do, I'll watch the game back tomorrow, but I feel like that is one of the big takeaways right now. The fact that this is a patchwork of all patchwork defensive backfields, and it seems to be holding up really well.
Oh yeah, I mean, you had guys making plays. You had Rockison make a couple of really good plays, including the ball that he forced Mike Evans to go out of bounds on. He only got 1 foot down. Rockison's been playing really physical, really aggressive. Mullet with the interception on an incredible play where K. Dotton clearly never had control of the ball as he made his way to the field, and Mullet was able to just pull it away from him. And upon review, they get that turnover. Amik Robertson with a great punch out, but they force 2 turnovers. They get the ball in plus territory, a missed field goal, and Jared Goff throws a bad interception after taking a sack where he wasn't able to diagnose. And it's the Todd Bowles defense, and I think maybe a lot of people should have been expecting a little bit more of a defensive matchup just because the names aren't out there. I think these two guys, whether it be Todd Bowles or whether it be Kelvin Shepard, they've shown an ability to call some pretty interesting defenses, and I think that was the big takeaway. Jahmyr Gibbs breaks off one big run. That first drive that the Lions had, moved down the field pretty methodically. They've been using a lot of Amon-Ra St. Brown, but it's gonna require them to kind of tighten it up and actually run the ball for some sustained gains on the ground.
We were talking about some of the parallels in the first interview with Eric because there really are a decent amount of parallels with these teams when I was thinking about it, because they're both kind of inherently under the radar. I think both of these head coaches don't get enough credit. I know that's a popular thing with Campbell, and people are going to say, well, you're in that market and everything. But I think specifically why he doesn't get enough credit is because I don't think he gets credit for establishing the culture like he has and for being a truly smart football guy, because we try to make, I talked about this in a previous interview, but we try to make everybody one thing. So he can't be like tough guy, former pass blocking tight end and smart football guy. He can't be like Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan and tough football player. He can only be one of those things, which of course people can be multifaceted, but that got attributed to different coordinators, different coaches like Ben Johnson, like others that have been underneath him. But I feel like it's the same with Bowles. It didn't work out for his previous head coaching job, but he's also a guy that lost both of his coordinators in quick succession, and they looked pretty good underneath him. But now the team still looks good when they lost both those coordinators to other teams. And then both quarterbacks are reclamation projects. It's just interesting to watch these guys, because I think you hit the nail on the head that, hey, like, these are good coaches. These are good coaching staffs, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So should we really be that surprised here?
Yeah. I think you you nailed it with Todd Bowles. I think he's a guy who's criminally underrated. And I think he's still carrying a lot of that baggage from his time with the New York Jets and that not working out. And unfortunately, we kind of see that playing out with Aaron Glenn as well. But, it's incredible what first impressions do, right? And I mean, people's first impressions of Baker Mayfield were impressive, but then as soon as, Cleveland started to go a little bit sideways, well, it's Baker's fault. And same kind of thing with, Goff in LA. So yeah, there are a lot of really interesting parallels. I thought, especially though, with Buka and with, Mike Evans both being active and healthy and ready to go. Unfortunately, Evans took a really nasty hit on a go route that Baker Mayfield threw to him, and he nearly had, but now he's been ruled out of the game with a concussion and a shoulder injury. But I think at full strength, both these teams, Ryan, you look at these teams, and they mentioned it on the broadcast, but these are two teams that right now this game is going to matter when it comes, when seeding happens in January.
I think that's a great point, and I've been saying it all game so far, but Baker Mayfield is a clutch player. There's no question about that, and he's a late game specialist. So I want them. I think that's why we talk about some of the opportunities there, because it's like, man, I would love for this game to be 21-3 or 24-3 versus what it's at right now, because you got to think. I saw Mayfield's first half stat line, and although that's a great accomplishment for the Lions D, it also makes me think, okay, there's going to be some course correction here, and he's going to have a decent second half, because he's just bound to do better than he did in the first half, just kind of by the law of averages here at this point. So hopefully they can come out, like you said, dominate the ball, control the game from the run game, and try to keep it out of his hands here.
Yeah, and I think another huge impression, something that left off the screen, especially on the first couple of drives that Tampa Bay had, Aleem McNeil. Thank goodness that guy's on the football team that we root for, right? Because he was walking the right guard back right into Baker Mayfield's lap on a couple of opportunities there. He got his hands on a pass to break up a third down play. Really happy to see him back. And when you think of the interior of that defensive line, I know we talked about it over the summer, but when you have guys like DJ Reader and Tyleik Williams coming along, you put Aleem McNeil back in there, you have Roy Lopez, who should be snapping at 40-45% on any other team in the NFL, and he's like the fourth guy in the rotation. It's an embarrassment of riches there, and it's truly how this secondary has kind of been propped up so far in this game. Is I'm going to be really impressed to see what kind of pressure stats this front seven puts up.
I'm glad you mentioned Lopez. I think that's the first Lopez mention since maybe camp on this show, and he has played pretty well. He's been limited in the snaps that he's gotten, even in McNeil's absence, but he's consistently ranking pretty high as far as PFF metrics and different advanced metrics there. So yeah, I think you hit it on the head that they are getting that pressure. We may want to kind of fantasy trade for more defensive linemen, what have you. We talked about that in the last segment, but there's a lot of good players on this team, and it's a difference from last year. I know people kind of have PTSD from last year with all the injuries, but with a lot of those injuries, Hutchinson wasn't coming back last year. A lot of those guys were out for the season. Barnes wasn't coming back. This year, we knew McNeil was going to come back. Most of the defensive backfield is due back, we think, this season, if not all of it. And so that's a very different situation than than they had last year. So the reinforcements are coming. But to your point, yeah, you want to get this one locked in against the Bucs. I have been going through your tweets, by the way. You had a tweet about McNeil, but the thing you asked that you said, you made a comment that you didn't want to be this guy, but I do want to talk about the refs a little bit, because I'm not sure what that comment was about in this game, but that's been a popular subject matter here. So I'm curious to get Ryan Mathews' take on what was going on there and this whole refs thing in general, especially with the Kansas City game.
Oh gosh, well, you got an hour? I don't know. Here it is. I don't want to be that guy, because that guy makes me think of SOL guy, Ryan. I don't want to think about the referees, and I don't want to think about how they're preventing the Lions from success. Good teams win football games, point, period, end of discussion. Even last week, going back to Kansas City, was there a clear distinction between the number of flags that were thrown on the Lions and the number of flags that were thrown on the Chiefs? Absolutely. Was it the reason the Lions lost that football game? Absolutely not. Like, the Lions ended up not making the plays when they needed to make plays. And, that game, not so much. This game, my goodness. Like, these referees are just having it bad both ways, though. They're making a ton of egregious calls. They're throwing flags on defensive holding or defensive pass interference, picking up on that play especially. They called offensive pass interference on Jameson Williams on something that was not a push-off. And then on the other side of the field, they threw a flag on Jamel Dean on a hold that was quite clearly a hold. And they pick up the flag on the near side. They call the offensive pass interference on Jameson Williams. It's just like, I don't want to be that guy. But, like, this game, it's kind of been stacking up in a way that, like, okay, like, can we get past the whole refs and the Boo Birds were out at Ford Field. They were letting them hear it. There's a whole refs you suck chant that ESPN couldn't even tone that down. So good luck to that crew getting things situated in the second half.
Well, hopefully, just like the two teams, hopefully the refs can have some second half adjustments too. I don't know if that's a thing for the referee crew, but hopefully they can have some. Yeah, that's one thing that I've been wanting to do on the show. We're working on some contacts there, but because I've got a couple inroads with a couple officiating contacts, but I'd like to have an open and honest discussion about officiating with somebody that obviously isn't a current official in the game, because that wouldn't be allowed, but somebody that's been through this stuff, because it's just like when we had Shane Graham on earlier, and when he talked about the nuances of kicking in his two interviews, how like that gets boiled down to, I can't believe you missed that 41-yard field goal to win the game, and that's it. That's our discussion. That's it for our kicking coverage, and I feel like it's that way for officiating too. Like, oh, I can't believe you missed that call. I do have an understanding that these are human beings first and foremost that are going to miss things. It's much harder to see a game on the field versus on the TV when it's slowed down in slow motion. So there's a little bit of cognitive dissonance there for the fan versus the official on the field. But all that being said, I'm not trying to make excuses for the official. There still has to be some accountability and some improvement of, okay, if some of these things aren't working, how do we change this? Do we need to add somebody into the mix? Do we need to change the angles that these guys are at so that they can see things better? Do we need to have more oversight, less oversight? Whatever it is, I feel like there is an interesting discussion there, but it's not just let's blame the refs, which was your initial point there.
Yeah, and I think you did a great job on extrapolating on that, because the things I do have a problem with are when the team scores a touchdown and they go to line up for the extra point, and then they want to throw the flag, right? Like, those are the things where it's like, okay, you threw the flag, and even in this game, the scenario I just explained, you threw the flag on Jamel Dean, but you picked it up too? Like, somebody threw it for a reason, right? And let's just kind of hear that thought process. It's something I've loved about ACC football games. I don't know if you've watched any ACC football games, Ryan, but they have a clear and transparent conversation where they are hearing the audio back and forth between the booth and the referees while they're reviewing a play. It's fantastic. Why can't we do this in every conference of every division level of football?
I haven't seen any ACC games this year, but I did like that in the UFL. That was something that was, and I thought that was something that they were kind of playing with to maybe get introduced, because that has happened. There's been some rule carryover from these other leagues to the NFL. So yeah, I think there's some change coming, because the disagreement will get loud enough where people will eventually hear it. But there is a way to have an interesting discussion about it, which I think this is an interesting one. But I see the second half is kicked off here, so we want to let you go and get back to the game. But Ryan will be back on the show in November as part of our Pride of Detroit Movember crossover here. He'll likely be on the show right before Thanksgiving here. But want to make sure to give you a chance to plug what you have going on, Ryan, because you guys do great stuff at Pride of Detroit there.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Ryan, I really appreciate you having me on. What a unique way to kind of catch my thoughts and feelings on the game, and I appreciate you giving me the outlet to do so. But I can't wait to come back on the show in November. I know we run, as you mentioned, the big Movember charity campaign for Pride of Detroit all November long, where we're going to be raising money for the Rogel Cancer Center. It's going to be a great time over at prideofdetroit.com podcast. You can check us out on Twitch, YouTube, at the actual website, where a lot of our staff is working really hard producing content for you to read and listen to, and it's all great stuff. And thanks again, Ryan. Really appreciate it.
Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh is brought to you by Mary Freebed, Collectible Insurance Services, West Michigan Eye Care Associates, Eric Hall, DDS, Calder Financial Group, Grand Management, Rydan Investments, JH Realty Partners, and Encore Business Group. Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh airs live Monday nights, 7 p.m. Eastern on Jethro.fm.
Stay informed and stay vigilant.